Are you ready for some smart, plain talk on politics, Israel, and the law? It's the Andrew Parker Show. Let's roll. Welcome to another episode of the Andrew Parker Show. We are live, and I've got a lot to get off my chest. It's a dangerous time. And trying to explain or even understand why things have unfolded the way they have as it relates to the Jews in the United States, in Israel, whether it relates to Zionism, whether it relates to Israel itself, the U.S. Israel relationship, how people in the U.S. feel about Israel. Yet, despite the fact that Jewish blood has run in the street in abundance, sadly, due to atrocities laying at the feet of Iran through Hamas or Hezbollah, regardless of that, people take the position against Israel based on ignorance, based on false teachings. And if you look at the United States today versus 10 years ago, it is shocking to see what has occurred, what is happening, what is acceptable. What is, as our friend Gavin Newsom would say, become part of the zeitgeist of U.S. policy discussions. And what am I talking about here? Well, I'm talking about the shift that has occurred that is so alarming. Yes, certainly you see it in anti-Semitism. The growth of anti-Semitism in Europe, in other countries of the West, including the United States. Blatant, bald-faced anti-Semitism where people are not only not afraid of saying things that are so heinous, so racist, so offensive. They almost wear it as a badge of honor. And now it is starting to affect institutions here. This week, the auto unions at their national convention, the United Auto Workers, endorsed Abdul al-Sayed for Michigan Senate candidate, who has said that the Israeli government is just as evil as Hamas. Disgraceful. Now, there may be a few members of the Israeli government, none of which are as evil as Hamas, none of which, but who are on the fringe, as there are in every country around the world. But the Israeli government is not that. The Israeli government, filled with compassion, even when they are forced to defend their citizens by fighting, the Israeli government open to equality for all in Israel, a judicial system that demands it. And the government does as well. Yes, the government of Bibi Netanyahu. But if there were another leader, it would be the same. It is based on Jewish teachings. and consistent with it. So the auto unions not only endorse El-Sayed, an openly anti-Semitic candidate for the U.S. Senate, but they voted this week to divest from the state of Israel, from Israel bonds, citing the war in Gaza. What is the issue with the war in Gaza? There would be no war in Gaza but for Hamas. Once they did what they did, the most heinous acts seen since the Holocaust, since World War II, since Adolf Hitler, the defense of the Jewish people was carried out in Gaza. It was not completed because the world community wouldn't allow it, and it should have been completed, but it wasn't. But nonetheless, there was action taken to defend the Israeli people and to destroy Israel's enemy on its border, the evil of Hamas. To destroy it so others of the West wouldn't have to deal with it, but certainly so that Israel wouldn't. And they had every right to do that, not just a right, had an obligation to do it. And there was no genocide. That's a colossal lie. In fact, the war carried out was governed by rules set out by the IDF, making it one of the most humane, ethical campaigns of war in human history. But that's ignored. All we hear is Israel shouldn't even exist. It's occupied land. They're occupying. No, they're not. They committed genocide in Gaza. No, they didn't. And we'll get to talking about how that has affected things here in the United States. So now we have auto workers voting to divest from the state of Israel. It's one of the largest unions in the country. It has now become popularized to speak out against Israel, to condemn Israel no matter what, and to divest from Israel. This constant onslaught of boycott, divestment, and sanctions to destroy the country of Israel had very little footing 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. But now it is gaining that footing. Next, it'll be the teachers' unions. And the enemy is winning, is the scary piece of it. Our education system in this country, in the United States, has now pushed generations with lessons of Jew hatred, of Zionism hatred, of Israel hatred. And these students come out of these courses, often paid for by jihadist, radical Islamists who provide funding for chairs at universities across the country, and to unleash falsehoods regarding the Middle East, regarding the state of Israel, and rewrite history and teach our kids. the dishonest tale that they tell. Occupation, genocide. So it is getting into the mainstream of the United States. It is generationally being handed down, and our kids are learning to hate Israel. So is it a wonder that the Gallup poll that I talked about a couple of months ago, no longer are Americans' Middle East sympathies with Israel? No longer. Even when, and this has always just confused me, I don't understand it. 1,300 Israelis are murdered. Many, many more maimed, and many destroyed for life, those still living, by the heinous atrocities carried out by Hamas, the Palestinians. And the Israelis are blamed. The Israelis, starting on day one after that atrocity of October 7th, their popularity has gone down. Why? Because they responded? The Jews had the audacity to stand up and defend themselves? They're not supposed to do that. Well, until 6 million are murdered. They now have the country of Israel, and they are no longer going to rely on anyone else to defend them. Though they have a relationship with the United States that is second to none. And again, I would argue the UK, who was never there for the U.S. in this latest struggle, this war, Germany wasn't, France wasn't, none of the European countries were. Israel was. Now, you can say, well, they had a self-interest that caused them to be. Israel has been there shoulder to shoulder in every catastrophe, in every policy position supportive of the United States for decades. And they are the number one ally of the U.S. in the world, I would argue. Yet, after Hamas, October 7th, they are, I think the word vilified can be used here. Yes, there was sympathy for a few hours. But then they were vilified and attacked. So we have auto unions now calling for divestment. We have, next it'll be the teachers' unions. We have universities who have been teaching and continue to teach hate and false narratives and facts, false facts. We have the United States now, Republican and Democrat, but particularly Democrats, now have completely switched their sympathies. After October 7th, completely switched their sympathies because of these lies, this propaganda on social media and otherwise. And our institutions of higher learning pushing out fake facts, fake news, fake history repeatedly. And our kids gobbling it up. And protests around the country, many of them bought and purchased. The Rent-A-Mob. and the nexus, the intersectionality of the far left movements, socialist and communist movements, against what they claim is the colonialist country of Israel. I mean, it's a speck on a map. Yeah, they're real colonialists. They're going out trying to take up land wherever they can get it. It's a speck on the map, and it always has been. It hasn't grown hardly at all in comparison to the mass of Arab countries around it. But regardless of that, it's not a colonialist country. It just wants to live in peace. And to the extent that there is any additional land, it is solely for that purpose, in order to be able to protect the little that it has. And that's all. It is the only democratic country in the Middle East. It is certainly the most liberal and equal rights country in the Middle East, and one of the most in the world, in fact. Freedom of the press, rampant in Israel, as much or more so than even in the United States. A democratic system that is so representative of the individual's vote. They've got, 16, depends on the year, 16, 18, 14 different parties that are represented. A direct representation democracy. But here in the Middle East, we have this shift, and it has become dangerous, and it is getting worse, and it is bolstered by anti-Semitism, which is now openly acceptable. The media, people like Tucker Carlson and the rest of his friends, openly acceptable to say things that are blatantly anti-Semitic. Jew hatred because the individual is Jewish, or the country is, or the policy supports Jews. Whatever it is, the reason for the hatred or opposition is because it involves Jews. And you see it, so you've got it in the media, you've got it in our schools, you've got it in the streets, in the public square. Now you're going to have it in organizations and associations like the Auto Workers Union. I predict the Teachers Union will be coming down the path here shortly. And now we're starting to elect the open anti-Semites. Now we're starting to elect them. They are becoming a centerpiece of one of the two major political parties in the United States. What a foothold for our enemies. I'm talking about the United States and enemies. What a foothold. It's not going to go well. And the number that are coming and pressing, they might be losing more than they're winning now. But as this groundswell continues, talking the grassroots, the shift in policy and attitude, believe me, casting Israel aside, destroying and severing a relationship like the U.S. Israel relationship will haunt this country forever. And we must not allow it to happen. So now there are a few that are walking the halls of Congress, and there are going to be more. Now they're getting into city council seats. of major cities, mayors of major cities, prosecutors, and it is going to change for the much, much worse the moral compass, the moral direction of this country. And I'll say, indeed, they are using our own constitutional laws, statutes, principles in order to change this country, to move it in a direction that ignores moral foundations on which the country was founded. The First Amendment protects the lies that are being spewed in the public square. And as we get more and more elected officials at whatever level who are openly pressing the anti-Zionist, anti-Israel, anti-Semitic consistent principles, it is going to become more and more dangerous. Heck, what are we going to do? We're going to face the Nuremberg laws of 1935 in Germany. I think we're a few years away from that, but it's headed in that direction. Again, because there is no fear of making blatantly anti-Semitic remarks. In fact, even using the term anti-Semitic doesn't really have such a negative connotation anymore. It's kind of like at some point somebody's going to say, if that's anti-Semitic, then that's what I am. I've already started to say it. So we need to stand up to it. We need to take action. We need to be bold. We need not be afraid. We need to call it out where it is, and we need to oppose, in particular, to hold the door shut so that it doesn't slam open and the whole rush comes in, and by that time it's over. We need to be the bulwark against it. To say, no, we're not going to elect Zoran Mamdani with his blatantly open anti-Israel positions, with his pack of lies about the Palestinian struggle and problem. And about Israel causing it, when in fact Israel has built, in large part, the infrastructure. And with security as its foundation, has had for many years tried to support it. But, every single time there was something walking toward a peace deal, the Iranians would get involved with Hamas and Hezbollah and create the numerous wars that came out. Well, what about this Iran deal that Donald Trump has negotiated, at least the Memorandum of Understanding? The deal is not yet negotiated. But let's just run through what we now know about this memorandum of understanding. First, realize that it appears, and check me if I'm wrong on this, but it appears that the goal was to sign a memorandum of understanding for Donald Trump, and that the most important provision or benefit of this deal is to have a memorandum of understanding as opposed to not. It appears that there aren't many other benefits to the United States. And by the way, why are we negotiating with this rogue, illegal, and radical Islamic regime that has killed so many, including many Americans, over the years, who for 47 years has been the lead sponsor of terror? Why are we negotiating with them? They oppress every day oppress their own people. They murdered tens of thousands of their own people. We said help is on its way. Donald Trump said that. And apparently it's not. And the people who continue to live in Iran and who are suffering now certainly view the United States as not living up to its word. But if we get an MOU, and we'll talk about this in a minute, it may well be the victory that Trump was looking for, because it'll allow him to get through the midterm elections. And it would be much worse for him, he believes, I think, if the country were still at war in November or had not caused the economic issues to improve, oil prices to come down. And if that did not happen, he would lose seats and then have yet another impeachment to deal with. And so he elevated in the priorities that he was looking at for this deal simply getting an MOU so that he could go out and start to focus on domestic policy issues and the improvements to the economy, and hope he doesn't get an impeachment because the Democrats have taken over the House. So it could very well be that. But boy, that's not a good deal. So let's look at, what did we get out of this MOU? And of course, it isn't the final deal, and arguably there'll never be a final deal. But paragraph 1 is cessation of hostilities. So there's no more hostilities. Now, that benefits Iran. I mean, the war is in Iran. It's not here in the United States. Yes, the U.S. military and our kids are over there fighting, but the hostilities are exponentially greater on the Iranian, or at least the casualties on the Iranian side, and the hostilities are being brought to bear on them by the U.S., not the other way around. We control the military landscape, as it were. So that provision is a benefit to Iran. Oh, thank God, there cannot be and there will not be any hostilities. Okay. In addition, or as a part of that, it says that by signing the MOU, it will declare the immediate and permanent termination of all military operations on every front, including in Lebanon. That's what I understand. And if that's the case, now this doesn't include Israel. Israel can be in Lebanon, but the U.S. will not. Okay, fine. But does that mean that Hezbollah can run roughshod? A record of success second to none. Parker Daniels Keyboard Law Firm, the numbers tell the story. The last 5 cases our lawyers have brought to trial have resulted in million and multi-million-dollar verdicts for our plaintiff clients and 0 defense verdicts for our defense clients. Put simply, we try cases and we win cases. Hi, I'm Andrew Parker. At Parker Daniels Keyboard, we take our work personally and we go the extra mile. That is why some of the biggest law firms, locally and nationally, send cases to us to handle when they can't. If you have a challenging and critically important business or personal legal dispute that must be favorably resolved, whether regarding a contract matter, a business divorce, a real estate dispute, an employment dispute, a civil rights or defamation matter, plain talk, if it's a big deal, contact us at Parker Daniels Keyboard. Wise counsel, winning results. Go to parkerdk.com. The Lebanese don't want Hezbollah there. The Lebanese government was near a deal with Israel. They'd been talking in a way to create peace on Israel's northern border and to work together to get rid of Hezbollah. That is a great benefit for the world. Next, regarding cessation of hostilities, the parties undertake not to initiate any war or military operation against each other, to refrain from the threat or use of force against one another, and to respect the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Lebanon. In other words, the Iranians wanted that language in there because they know they control Lebanon and it is on the border with Israel. It's a horrific provision. Why are we agreeing to that? Then it says the final deal will confirm the permanent termination of the war on all fronts, including Lebanon, and will incorporate the other provisions of this paragraph. Why does Lebanon have any role in this whatsoever other than because of Hezbollah? And that is the only reason. It is a terrorist proxy of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And this MOU allows them to continue to support. Now, I understand the administration says that's not the case. They've said it a number of times. The way this reads to me is it definitely is the case. And if you're going to do a final deal, you have to look at the MOU and you have to include in the final deal, unless the parties agree to change it, the terms that you agreed in the MOU would be in the final deal. It's not just neutral. It's not just beneficial to Iran. It is horrific and is a recipe for war because Israel is not, nor would any country, accept continuous rocket fire, except a terrorist organization on its border carrying out death and destruction. the U.S. would last 2 seconds before it launched and destroyed any such threat. Destroyed it in full. No, this deal allows Hezbollah to survive and live and grow, just as it does Iran itself. So that's paragraph 1. Paragraph 2, sovereignty and non-interference. The parties undertake to respect each other's sovereignty. What, we need Iran to respect our sovereignty? No, that was totally a pro-Iranian provision. Why should we be respecting the sovereignty of Iran when these mullahs are, illegal? It was a coup that they took over the country of Iran. They have not been voted on. They're a usurper of all the power and authority of the country against the interests of their people. Or else they would have full and fair elections, which they've never had. And we all know that. So the parties undertake to respect each other's sovereignty and territorial integrity and to refrain from interfering in each other's internal affairs. Okay, so that's it. We are done being involved with Iran, and sorry, citizens of Iran, you're going to have to deal with these fanatics, the IRGC, being disappeared in the middle of the night. And while we came close and we could have resolved all of these issues and really created a new Middle East, I didn't want impeachment. The third paragraph, timeline for a final deal. That's just a procedural paragraph about this 60 days. Fourth paragraph, naval blockade. So this is the third pro-Iranian provision. The blockade will be removed. And the United States further undertakes to withdraw its forces from the proximity of Iran within 30 days after the conclusion of the final deal. So it's all benefit to Iran. I'm still looking for what it is the U.S. got out of this MOU. The Strait of Hormuz and maritime security will go back to where it was before we did bombing. Okay, well, why'd we bomb? Yeah, maybe we didn't need to bomb. The strait goes back to where it was. Iran controls it, and now they know how powerful to the world economy the strait is, and they can take advantage of that. The next paragraph, so now we've got one procedural paragraph and 4 provisions, all benefiting Iran, all for the purpose of supporting, helping Iran. The sixth is reconstruction and economic development, which says that the United States, in coordination with regional partners, undertakes to develop a definitive mutually agreed reconstruction and economic development plan for the Islamic Republic of Iran valued at a minimum of $300 billion US. So now we're going to build the enemy. We're going to build them up. We're going to take care of their economic woes and the sanctions and everything else for their malign activities. We're going to ignore them, those activities. And we're going to make it possible for them to get back their billions and to earn billions and billions more. I'm still looking for what does the U.S. get out of this? Sanctions termination. The U.S. undertakes to terminate all sanctions against Iran. Well, that's obviously another beneficial provision for the Islamic Republic. So all UN Security Council resolutions, IAEA Board of Governors resolutions, and all unilateral U.S. primary and secondary sanctions, according to a schedule in the final deal, will be released. And the UN won't be able to sanction Iran. Now, if we had J.D. Vance here, he would say, wait a minute, that doesn't happen until the final deal, if until it's included in the final deal, and to be included, it will need to have actions taken by Iran to get this sort of sanction relief. Well, we'll see. We will see. Nuclear issues. Oh, we might be getting to something that benefits the U.S. The Islamic Republic of Iran reaffirms that it shall not procure or develop nuclear weapons. Oh, they're reaffirming it as if they never had been doing that. They cheated from day one of the JCPOA, of the Obama deal. They cheated from day one. It is now proven and shown. Don't let someone tell you that they were following it, because they weren't. But even if they did, they would have had a glide path to a nuclear weapon under that deal. But here, they're saying, they're reaffirming that they're going to go back to doing what they did, which was cheating. The parties agree to resolve the disposition of Iran's stockpiled enriched material through a mutually agreed mechanism, with the baseline method being on-site downblending under IAEA supervision. Huh. You think that's going to work? You think Iran is just going to openly take care of it? Well, trust and verify, but verify. Yes, we'll verify. What, like we verified in North Korea? No. You make one mistake, and the nuclear weapon is possessed, and there's a breakout. The parties will also discuss Iran's enrichment activities and other nuclear-related matters within a satisfactory time framework to be agreed in the final deal. So it's not just there is no enrichment. It's a done deal right now. There's nothing to talk about. That's not this deal. This deal is, well, we'll talk about it. It's not like there's a compromise there. You can move off of zero enrichment into, well, all right, you can. Then you might as well go back to where we were. Status quo pending the final deal. This is the one where they can just delay, and they've already shown how well they do that against the Trump administration, which has allowed them to do it. And by the way, there's no way, and they know this, there's no way Trump is going to go back to military action. It just will never happen, because that would be the end of the upcoming midterm elections. And that's the most important thing. And they know that. They have known that, which is why this is such a ridiculously bad deal. Status quo pending the final deal. we're gonna end up we're gonna be talking about, it's unbelievable, enriched uranium and their nuclear activities, implying that there's going to be enriched uranium and nuclear activities. Pending the final deal, the parties agree to maintain the status quo. The Islamic Republic of Iran will maintain the current status of its nuclear program. They get to keep it. We'll see what happens. And the United States will not impose any new sanctions or deploy additional forces in the region. This all reads like the U.S. will stand down. The U.S. will have this and that and the other obligation. I'm still looking for what the U.S. gets other than an MOU, a signed MOU. Oil export waivers. Immediately upon signing this MOU and until the termination of sanctions, the U.S. Department of Treasury shall issue waivers authorizing the export of Iranian crude oil. Another huge benefit for Iran, billions flowing in. Access to frozen funds and assets. Yep. The U.S. shall make fully available all frozen or restricted Iranian funds and assets. Upon implementation of this MOU, so not when the final deal is, but upon implementation of this MOU, the parties will mutually agree on procedures for the release and use of these funds during negotiations. Money will flow to Iran. They don't have to do a deal. They can drag out a deal. Money will be flowing. No sanctions. No pressure. It's unbelievable. Next, the monitoring mechanism. Oh, this might be something that the U.S. gets. Let's see. The parties agree to establish an executive mechanism to monitor the implementation of this MOU and future compliance with the final deal. Of course, there's going to be a mechanism to monitor. Of course. Whether it'll be effective, whether there will be an end around, who knows? But the agreement is there's going to be a monitoring mechanism. Okay. I wouldn't break out the band for that one. But it did take till paragraph 12 for us to get any sort of, well, we get monitoring. Okay. Sequencing of negotiations after signing this MOU and subject to the commencement and continued implementation of paragraphs 1, 4, 5, 10, and 11. That's basically giving everything to Iran. The parties shall begin negotiations on the remaining elements of the final deal. I see nothing in this deal for the United States. Finally, paragraph 14. The final deal shall be endorsed by a binding UN Security Council resolution. Well, I'm sure China and Russia will endorse this deal. It's fabulous. Their ally, Iran, comes out beautifully. They were on their back. Mark my words, if this final deal goes through and it's like this, there will be war upon war upon war because of it. And that can only be obvious to everyone except, I guess, J.D. Vance. This is J.D. Vance's MOU. Here it is. Now, the president went along for reasons that are difficult to understand. But let's take a look at why he might have. I have someone who staunch Republican, supporter of the president, who tries to, but also a strong supporter of Israel and the Jews, who tries to make sense of this MOU. And he says the following: President Trump has not flipped or abandoned Israel. His support for the Jewish state and the Jewish people is incontestable. And I tend to agree with that. There's a list of what he has done, and you can make it, if you like, in his first term and thus far in this term, for the Jews and the state of Israel. It is second to none in terms of presidents of the United States. Okay, so we start there. But that really doesn't speak to the MOU. President Trump has decided that winning the November midterms and preventing the Democrats from taking control of Congress is of paramount importance, given the certainty that if this were to happen, the opposition will seek to impeach. This is what I was talking about before. And derail his administration's foreign and domestic policies for the balance of his second term. He'll be done. He won't be able to move anything. That the Democratic Party has lost, it's just off the rails, is incontestable, and therefore nothing is more important than the upcoming midterms. And as I said before, the Iranians know that. They are as shrewd as they come in terms of understanding who is and what is going on the other side of the table. And then they negotiate from there. And again, they're as shrewd as they come in negotiations. And it just appears to me that President Trump cannot possibly say he prevailed on this deal. He ignored everything in his book, if you will. So, winning the midterms, critical. More important than, I don't know, people's lives who are going to be lost because the Iranian fanatic regime of murderers and butchers is going to continue in force. Yeah, the midterms are more important than that. Maybe. Right? I'm not. It appears that is the calculus. Next, because American voters vote their pocketbooks and not security and foreign policy issues and are tired of wars, he doesn't have the people's support on any policy other than signing an MOU. And so he had to sign an MOU. He didn't really have a choice, sort of argument. So in order to have a chance to win the midterms, President Trump needs to put the Iran war on pause for the time being, reduce inflation, lower energy and food prices, keep the stock markets booming, stabilize world markets, etc. This is how he sees American interests at this time needing to be addressed. Okay. America first. This is an America first policy. That's why he's doing it. Now, I don't think it is. I disagree with his calculus, as I say, about that. And by the way, we will never know, but it certainly looks like the Democrats are going to take the House of Representatives. And so it's likely that he would have lost anyway, regardless. And actually winning and being able to describe victory, even if it took a month to do it, which he should have started long ago, he should have never stopped, it would have been done. Unless, maybe there's military advisors are telling him we can't beat Iran. It would be a long, drawn-out war to win. It could end up like a quagmire in Vietnam. If it's that sort of counsel, but I don't think it is. The first several months didn't lose a single soldier. I mean, it's crazy. Unbelievable. All right. So it's an America First decision. All right. Next, the MOU is only an agreement to negotiate and to maintain a ceasefire for the time being. Now, I read that it was to be a permanent cessation of hostilities. But, of course, if we don't get a final deal, the MOU can be torn up, and I suppose that's what Trump is saying. I can always tear up the MOU. Well, it's so terrible. That would be a good idea. He believes that he has all the cards with this MOU and can determine how much he is willing to ease the U.S. stranglehold on Iran and its proxies. Again, I'm reading from notes, actually a post by a staunch Republican and a staunch supporter of the State of Israel. So when and how he eases the stranglehold on Iran and its proxies, even though it says he'll recognize the sovereignty and integrity of Lebanon, even though it says that, he can tear that up and go forward. Next, President Trump excluded Israel from the MOU, which either by design or default gives Israel a free hand to protect its vital national security interests in Lebanon, Syria, and even in Iran. Yeah, they can go it alone. But you can bet that Iran will push Hezbollah out there, get them moving, and dropping bombs and firing, maybe taking hostages from across the border like they did several years ago. Gilad Shalit comes to mind. So Israel can continue to defend itself. Of course, the world will be up in arms. All of the anti-Semites in the United States will be up in arms. It will put pressure on whoever is the next president in 2028, but even in the midterms, it'll have an impact. And Israel will be forced to go it alone. And we'll question whether J.D. Vance will be supportive. Next, I don't like the content, this is this writer of the MOU, or the tone of certain statements from the White House defending it. But in an election year, that's what we're stuck with. And the bottom line is the relationship between Israel and the United States is strong and inviolable. Israel will protect its interests, and so will the U.S. protect the American public, including Israel protecting 750,000 U.S. citizens that are in Israel. 750,000. That's how tight we are with Israel. That's how close. That's how they are the number one ally in the world in terms of supporting the U.S. and providing to the U.S. enormous benefits. Enormous. We've talked about that on other shows. in the end, you have to have some faith. Hopefully, Donald Trump will not allow this to unravel any further. And hopefully J.D. Vance will get educated soon as it relates to the state of Israel and care about the great alliance between the U.S. and Israel, which this MOU doesn't particularly appear to. Well, that's what I have for today. It was a bit long-winded, but got a few things off my chest, and I hope you gained a little bit of insight. Our next show, we've got a number of episodes coming up. John Hinderacher with the American Experiment coming up next week, along with Congressman Brad Finstad will be with us. The 1st Congressional District in the state of Minnesota. He is running, and it's a tight race. So we'll have the congressman on. I think we'll have a congressman from Wisconsin on next week. And so we carry on. Hopefully some of the issues related to the haters in this country who are starting to really gain a foothold, unfortunately, and scarily, will turn around. And we will start to address those issues and stand up to them. Again, we are the last vestige bulwark to keep from crazy laws being adopted in this country, some of which I've already started. Until next time, well, go to the AndrewParkerShow.com, the AndrewParkerShow.com. Join us. Give us your email address. Subscribe, and you'll get each episode as they drop. Until then, be kind to your neighbor. For more Smart Plain Talk, go to theandrewparkershow.com. Learn about all of your listening and viewing options. And remember, all the great things are simple, and many can be expressed in a single word: freedom, justice, honor, duty, mercy, hope. This episode of The Andrew Parker Show is sponsored by Parker Daniels Keyboard.
Did your employer make you sign a promissory note when joining the company, and now you want to leave, but you're afraid your firm will pursue you personally for that debt? This is Jesse Keyboard from the law firm Parker Daniels Keyboard. I recently represented a client who had signed such a note, and I was able to get them out of their $500,000 debt to their company, which allowed them the freedom to exit a bad employment situation and enter a much better one. Meeting our clients' objectives is our focus at Parker Daniels Keyboard, and in this regard, we win. Our experienced trial team of lawyers at Parker Daniels Keyboard have secured major victories in state and federal courts across the country and through arbitration. We have the legal expertise in all types of business disputes, labor and employment matters, real estate matters, shareholder disputes, financial transactions, security issues, and appeals. For wise counsel, winning results, contact us at Parker Daniels Keyboard, a premier litigation law firm that provides efficient, aggressive, and innovative solutions to complex legal problems. Wise counsel, winning results. Go to parkerdk.com.